Good evening and welcome to this public workshop of the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County. I am Board President Robert Silworth. Tonight, the board will learn more from Superintendent Dr. Mark Bedell and Anne Arundel County Public School staff on the newly implemented Reveal Math curriculum. This workshop is open to the public. However, no comment will be taken. The workshop is being broadcast live on AACPS TV, which can be found on Channel 6 on Comcast and Astound and Channel 36 on Verizon. High definition broadcast can be seen on Channel 996 on Comcast, Channel 496 on Astound, and Channel 2136 on Verizon. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we are excited to give an update on Reveal Math. We are in the first year of implementation for this presentation. We have our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Duarte, and staff who will take us through this workshop.
Oh, good evening. We're pleased to join you this evening for our workshop, and we're going to do quick introductions before diving into our slides.
So I'll start. Marquise Duarte, Chief Academic Officer for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. I would be remiss if I didn't take just a few seconds to welcome and thank Ms. Karen Riley-Jeffers here in the back. She is our coordinator of elementary school mathematics. She has really been leading the charge on this very critical and important work, and her team has worked exhaustively to really help us stand up and have a really smooth rollout of this initial implementation year for Reveal. So without further ado, I will introduce my colleague. I'll let her give you the name, but I do want to acknowledge that my colleague here, who remains nameless for a second, has been recently promoted to Director of Elementary School Core, and she's supporting all of our core subject areas. She has a much longer title that she's allowed to share with you, but I thought it was for the purpose of this meeting. It's nice to acknowledge that she's being promoted to a director soon here.
Thank you.
That's July 1.
So my name is Amanda Salveron. Thank you.
And Michelle Batten, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. So on this slide, you will see a few terms that will be used in the presentation. So please take a few moments to read these definitions to yourself. Tonight, we are going to spend time increasing our understanding of Reveal Math, why we selected Reveal, what Reveal is, and describe who and how Reveal Math supports the community of learners. It is important to understand where we were to build solid plans to move forward. Over the past 10 years, AACPS has used a robust process to curate materials and create curriculum, instruction, and assessment documents for teachers. This unintentionally prohibited standardization of instruction and assessment across classrooms or school buildings and often led to teachers looking for outside, unapproved materials, spending additional and extensive planning time, searching for and utilizing multiple materials. And this ultimately led to frustration with teaching and learning of mathematics. Student learning was impacted by this lack of consistency, and therefore the success intended and expected did not come. Without a streamlined single message curriculum program, students were often using dissimilar materials, following a different scope and sequence, and learning differently across the district. There was a clear need to systematize classroom instruction and reduce teacher workload. The single textbook adoption process includes a multi-phase exercise that focuses on student and teacher needs that includes stakeholders from the entire ACPS community. The process launched with a request for proposals that led to a review and evaluation period. The committee for each phase included administrators, elementary and middle school math resource staff, special education teachers and leaders, advanced learner programs, teachers, and parents across all clusters. The committee used a rubric to evaluate the resources on alignment to Maryland College and Career Readiness standards, evidence-based practices, culturally responsive and equitable teaching practices, formative and summative assessment practices, differentiation for diverse learners, and implementation support. The deeper evaluation process focused on classroom needs, and in collaboration with teacher and administrator associations, school-based staff came together to experience a reveal lesson and a final review based on teacher and student needs. This lens was broad as the teacher and student population is quite diverse. This graph shows the final ratings from that group of school-based staff. Reveal reflects the rigorous requirements of the standards by giving attention to the development of conceptual understanding, procedural skills, and application. It provides vertical coherence, which was a noted need based on previous curriculum. The program components are easy to navigate. Instructional resources are at hand to meet the needs of all learners, and the program includes mathematical progressions developed for a wide range of educator experience and student proficiencies.
Reveal Math was designed with these tenets to create a balanced program. Mindset provides students with opportunities to understand beliefs and how those beliefs impact student behavior and learning. Students develop the understanding that mistakes help them become better at math to foster strong identity and agency in math class. Every unit begins with an Ignite activity to spark students' curiosity. These activities integrate situations from the real world to get students thinking about and wondering about the content they will learn in the unit. If our children are curious, they are engaged. Before students dive deep into their daily lessons, teachers engage them in instructional routines to help create and maintain a productive learning environment that encourages them to be doers of mathematics. Additionally, integrated throughout all instructional activities and routines are opportunities for discourse, for students to learn from each other through conversation and collaboration. Lastly, the Reveal Math program allows teachers flexibility in planning lessons to address the needs of their students. For example, every lesson includes 2 options for instructional delivery. Based on student evidence, teachers have the flexibility to choose the option most appropriate for their class. Reveal Math is a research-based K-5 core math program that deepens conceptual understanding, promotes a growth mindset, and creates an active classroom experience. Reveal Math received green ratings across all 3 gateways as measured by Ed Reports: focus and coherence, rigor and mathematical practices, and usability, confirming that Reveal meets or exceeds all expectations for high-quality curriculum materials. Instruction is focused on grade-level standards, which support closing the achievement gap. Coherence is seen when instruction is attentive to learning across grades and to linking major topics within grades. Reveal is rigorous. It provides opportunities for students to build their conceptual understanding, procedural skills, fluency, and application. These standards are rooted in the 8 mathematical practices, which are the behaviors of mathematicians that will allow our students to be globally competitive. Reveal Math has a flexible lesson design that allows teachers to plan for instruction based on data gathered in a variety of ways. During launch, students see real-world tasks and are asked to be curious. This engages students in the topic and helps them make connections to mathematical concepts. Number routines develop fluency and support the application of various efficient strategies. Math language routines promote mathematical language use and encourage structured discourse. Sense-making routines build a foundation for problem solving and mathematical modeling. Explore and develop begins with pose the problem, where students are introduced to a task with real-world context. Teachers choose between activity-based exploration or guided exploration for the whole group instruction based on the student's current level of understanding. Regardless of which exploration is selected, teachers help students make connections and clarify misconceptions about their learning as they bring it together. After teacher-led instruction, students have an opportunity to practice what they learned, complete various formative assessment tasks, and participate in differentiated activities. Focus was given to dedicated student practice and application, providing teacher resources to support ongoing assessment that drives flexible and responsive differentiation. Teachers are charged with meeting the needs of individuals and small groups during the differentiation part of the lesson. The class then comes together to close the lesson and make connections to future learning.
Recognizing that Reveal was new to all members and each person started in the acquisition phase. The implementation of Reveal was intentional and deliberate. Opportunities were provided for central office leadership, school-based leaders, and teacher leaders. Title III funds were used to support monthly subject matter expert sessions focused on program components and specific grade level content and instructional strategies. 95% of elementary schools have participated in virtual after-school sessions. 85% of teachers report that the sessions are effective in helping them gain relevant content knowledge and skills. Reveals for all. It ensures there is consistency across content, and grades, classes, and schools, eliminating the inequities that are associated with too much teacher discretion. Reveal offers a plethora of opportunities to build the capacity of teachers. Each lesson provides teachers with background knowledge, skills, and strategies to support their understanding of the content, as well as activities and guiding questions to support student understanding. Support for students, teachers, and families is accessible throughout the units and lessons to build mathematics understanding during the school day and beyond. You can see students engage in learning in many different ways. Preliminary data gathered through the iReady diagnostics at the beginning and middle of the year note that Anne Arundel County Public Schools students in grades K through 5 continue to show growth after the adoption of Reveal Math. Many times, a new curriculum adoption causes a decrease in student achievement, often referred to as the implementation dip. But what we see here is promising, no decrease in mid-year scores, and there is great anticipation for end-of-year scores that'll show student success now and in the future. Both student and teacher data are important to measure success. You can see here what teachers have to say about Reveal Math. Teacher surveys report that the program includes opportunities for them to effectively plan and utilize materials with integrity and to further develop their understanding of the content. Teachers note they are more confident in their ability to effectively teach a Reveal Math lesson, and this allows for time and energy to be spent on student learning. Engagement is key to success in building a new community of learners. Virtual and in-person family launch parties were held across the district to allow caregivers from all clusters to experience Reveal, touch and learn about the materials, and engage in learning alongside others in their communities. Alongside the Office of School and Family Partnerships, 7 launch parties were held in October 2023, and over 1,000 community members attended in total. Language interpreters and bilingual facilitators were available at each launch party, both in person and virtually, where families had access to language support in Urdu, Portuguese, Chinese, Spanish, and American Sign Language. Reveal provides opportunities throughout each unit for caregivers to engage with the content through the math replay video and family letters currently available in English and Spanish. Schools continue to engage families by hosting Reveal-focused math nights at their respective schools, engaging learners and extending the reach of mathematicians throughout the year. These elements ensure clear messaging around mathematical learning across the district and grade levels. So at this time, if you have any questions, we're here to assist. But prior to that, I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague, Ms. Salvron here, because she'd like to talk a little bit about the characters that you have in front of you.
So you see that out in front of each of you, we placed one of our STEM Reveal Career Kids who provide windows and mirrors for our students. This is just one example of how Reveal Math exposes students to diverse identities and helps them make authentic, real-life connections. One of the great benefits of these STEM kids is knowing that students see them as they grow year after year, just like students. Kayla, who you see here, is a landscape architect who designs public outdoor spaces, including school playgrounds. Some careers showcased in Reveal Math are paramedics, sound engineers, astronomers, and chefs, just to name a few that you see in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're ready for the question round. So we're going to go in roll call order this evening. And this evening, we're starting with Ms. Ellis.
Wasn't expecting that. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Obviously, we've been all holding our breath, waiting to learn about how this is going. I have just a couple of questions right now. So iReady is, it's not part of the real curriculum, right? It's it's an assessment tool that determines how they're doing. Is that right? It's not part of the Reveal Math curriculum?
No, iReady lives outside of Reveal.
Okay, that's what I
So
thought.
Reveal is your core mathematics program for K through 5. iReady is a diagnostic tool and it's an instructional tool as well that can support Reveal, but it's not completely aligned with that program.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. I thought that was the case. We certainly have heard quite a bit of testimony with concerns about iReady. I'm a huge proponent of individualized instruction and ensuring that every student is different and works at a different pace, and identifying where they need support. But that being said, the concerns that we've heard seem legitimate when what they're being tested on doesn't align with what they're doing in the classroom. So is there anything you can offer to those concerns?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. This is something we actually anticipated. So this is obviously the inaugural year of the rollout of Reveal. And so there is a component that we are currently assessing, investigating that comes with Reveal Math that's called ALEX, which is a computer adaptive program similar to iReady, but to your point, Ms. Ellis, it actually comports with and links with the program a lot more coherently than iReady. So we're certainly not in a position to make that decision right now, but we are doing some investigation into the feasibility of at some point maybe integrating that as opposed to iReady. That begs a much bigger systemic conversation. There's budgetary impacts, but there is a program, to your point, that does comport a little bit better and would support this core program of Reveal a little bit better than iReady. But there's other implications for that decision. But we are at least assessing, and we'll bring Dr. Bedell a recommendation here in the coming months.
That's very helpful. Thank you. So I believe Alex is the assessment tool a lot of universities use for math placement. My kids have taken some Alex tests. And can you repeat the statement you made early in your presentation about mistakes? What was the statement you made there about?
I'm gonna find exactly
Sorry.
what I
Something
said.
about mistakes are
Yeah.
part of learning.
Mistakes are part of the learning process. I'm trying to find the exact.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was very early when you started speaking. Was a statement you made about that. It's okay if you can't find it.
Students develop the understanding that mistakes help them become better at math to foster strong identity and agency in math class.
Okay. And I'm just making a note. So I think that's great. My questions do tend to be sort of bigger picture. So traditionally, there's a whole argument that grading is not particularly good for students because they're striving to be the fastest and the best, and they're focused on the grade rather than the actual deep learning. How does this play out? How does this idea that you stated here, that mistakes help them become better at math, how does that play out in terms of students being identified as being really quick at math versus those who might be more pensive and take a little more time? Do students, in other words, you can make the statement that mistakes help them be better at math, but at the end of the day, are students feeling like, oh, I've made a mistake, therefore I'm not good at this? Can you explain how that statement plays out in the curriculum?
Can I answer that and I'll follow up?
Absolutely. So the idea of students being able to make mistakes and learn from their mistakes, right? So we want our students to be global citizens, and that includes being risk takers as well. So we build the mindset in the classroom through mathematics as well as many others of our content areas to encourage students to take those risks, to be bold, to ask questions, and then also to respect one another. Right? That not everyone's going to be right all the time. And therefore, that gives students who are listening also a good chance to be thinking through their reasoning as well, as the teacher then takes possibly a mistake and builds the student up to ensure that they understand how to correct that.
Okay, so a student making a mistake, it's not going to impact the assessment of how they're doing if ultimately they master the concept. Is that right? Do I understand that right?
Yep.
Okay.
So I think typically what happens is throughout the lessons themselves, the students are practicing. We have what's called ongoing formative assessment that teachers are making. They will say that's assessment, for learning that drives, again, the next teacher move in terms of how do I support students. So we're assessing what they need. So we're in essence wanting them to struggle a little bit because obviously there's growth that comes with that. You learn a little bit better sometimes when you fail. So people say, you have to fail so that you can succeed. So it's the same concept on a micro level in the classroom. Teachers are formally assessing and then trying to provide that corrective coaching to students in real time so that by the end of the lesson or by the end of the unit, they've grappled, they've had the productive struggle, they've made their mistakes, they've learned from their mistakes so that they actually can perform on the summative assessment, which is where we're assessing for the actual learning itself versus assessing,
Okay. Thank you very much.
formatively.
Ms. Shalheim.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm grateful for the information. In terms of how this looks in the classroom on the day-to-day, how much of it is paper and pencil and worksheets and whatnot, and how much of it is computer-based, the curriculum overall?
So thank you, Ms. Sean. It's a combination of all the above, and it can vary from day to day where they're more paper pencil based, or like we would like to see with the manipulatives in place. So they're using their mathematical tools to help them problem solve and work through those skills that we're building. So in addition to that, you may find a combination of things throughout the lesson where we're utilizing our manipulatives during the whole group activity, pose the problem. We then maybe transition to our exploration where it may be more paper pencil, or when we move into independent, it's on the computer. So it's a variety of mediums that are being used through the math course. And I have to say, as our teachers are becoming more accustomed to the digital platform that aligns with Reveal, they're able to take a deeper dive into using those electronic platforms.
Because I know it's some like the parents of the really small kids will say like, no, that you need to be able to write out the equation. You need to, you have to have good penmanship too. Like all of that matters. And a whiteboard or a dry erase board or whatever to write out things and to map it out. Those things aren't going away. They're part of this curriculum. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then I also hear from parents like, well, we don't want more screen time for the really littles. You know, we want more, less is more. So what have you heard in terms of feedback from that parent set?
I have not heard any objections. While that's very limited in the math lesson, typically you would see that during perhaps the differentiation if it is going to be utilized that particular day. And again, it's not necessarily every day.
Cool. And then with next year, with the Chromebooks by and large being in the classroom as opposed to at home, I can assume that there'll be a lot more focus on worksheets and things of that regard at home for homework. Is that a fair assessment, do you think?
I think again, you'll see perhaps a variety of things.
variety,
And
okay.
so certainly taking into account students who may not have access to any digital devices at home will be a consideration.
The feedback I've received so far is that the connection with real world applications has been very much appreciated and enjoyed by students. And so I'm enjoying these characters up here, but then it got me thinking about like how much of this is like the iReady thing that, you know, I'm now that I have a middle school student, definitely doesn't age well, but they see these characters in a variety of different settings, right? It's not just in the computer form. It's on the paper and pencil version, paper and pen version of things too. Okay, this is great. Thank you. Yeah, I've heard some positive feedback about the real world applications, and I'm excited about that part.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Frank?
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask some questions about Common Core. Is this replacing Common Core? Is it supplementing that? What is the status of that?
So, I mean, this program is designed, it's actually aligned to Common Core. So you've got the Maryland State Standards for College and Career Readiness, which are really directly connected to Common Core, which this is aligned to. So part of the SCA process was to find a curricular program that would provide coherence and alignment to those state standards, or the Common Core state standards.
Okay. Does McGraw-Hill have other Reveal curriculum or variations of this curriculum, or is it sort of a one-size-fits-all?
Different grade bands, or it's particular for grade K through 5?
K through 5.
So McGraw-Hill is a publishing company, does support other curricular programs within a big suite. I mean, it's a huge publishing company. So there are other K through 5 curriculum programs they support. Specific to Reveal, you've got the K through 5, and then they've got, I think, a 6 to 8 component. And I actually think they have a high school component as well. But if you're talking in terms of other curriculum programs specific to K through 5 that live in the McGraw-Hill suite, yes, there are other programs.
Are there any social emotional learning aspects incorporated into this curriculum?
Thank you for asking. Yes, actually, all of the pillars of social emotional learning are woven throughout so that as students are engaging, again, especially in that launch or be curious and their direct instruction from their teacher, things as we think as small as taking turns or sharing manipulatives and turning and listening to one another are just a part of the work that is done in our Reveal lessons.
Okay. And how much time is taken away from academics to focus on those things?
There is no time taken away. It is embedded in the lesson structure.
So how much focus would those embedded pieces have that would not be academic?
I think it would be extremely limited.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Tobin?
Thank you. So I wanted to ask with regard to differentiation, is this curriculum one that lends itself to meeting students where they are across the range? In other words, G&T on the one end, SPED or some version on the other? Does it have that kind of flexibility?
Yeah, so I'll briefly answer that, and I can allow Ms. Patton to follow up as well. So the program's designed for every lesson, and we went through the kind of major components. There's what's called the assessment or exit ticket. That by nature will offer then differentiation tools. So it's usually a 3-item assessment, and then based on how students do, it'll actually tell you these students, based on their assessment score today, should get what might be called an extension activity, which is really going to push those higher level conceptual thinking skills, versus the students who need kind of reinforcement, which is really a small group. I'm going to pull as an individualized teacher and try to do a little bit more small group kind of tutoring type with the students who need the reinforcement. And then there is one where you're just kind of building their proficiency. So it's kind of a 3-tiered model by which you can extend some, kind of enrich others, right? And then you can obviously do some reteaching for the students who have a little more of intensive need based on that day's concept and how they did on the exit ticket. So what we've been having the conversations around, how do we really push some of our higher performing students, would be to really access those extension materials that last 15 or 20 minutes of every lesson, that allows to differentiate for those students that need more of the conceptual thinking, high level critical thinking aspect of it. But it also gives you those reteaching opportunities, a really explicit, systematic way of approaching a concept that it's going to give the teacher to kind of reteach the students who are not performing as well. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Ms. Batten.
Thank you. We also are currently exploring a proposal we'll put together that Dr. Duarte will take forward to Dr. Bedell, that will be in addition to what was just described for our GT students that are truly above and beyond our advanced levels. And so that's forthcoming for the 24-25 school year.
Great. The other thing I wanted to ask about, it was a slide, I think towards the end, which noted, I think, a number of 69% teacher confidence. So I wanted to ask, I mean, I'm happy to ask about all the percentages there, but that's certainly well above the 50 mark, but obviously we'd like it to be higher, I think is fair to say. So I wanted to ask for you to comment on that in any way you wish further. And there was also mention of something that I think is very important in this, which is, you know, I think Dr. Duarte, you and I spoke about this at one time. You know, I think it's fair to say, broadly speaking, often the people who are drawn to elementary teaching don't, at large numbers, come out of STEM backgrounds. So the content of math is not necessarily their strongest suit. And so it seems obviously there is a need, and I know there was some reference to this, to ensuring that teachers are actually getting the reinforcement in the content, not just how to teach it, but also, you know, this notion of confidence, I think, is critical. And so I'd love to hear more about what you think about it, any lessons learned along the way, and sort of where you see this going moving forward.
Yeah, sure. So with regard to this specifics about the confidence level, I do think there's an opportunity there to improve that. 69% in our first year of implementation, I think is laudable, right? But certainly leaves some opportunity for us to grow and do better going forward. I do think that begs the conversation we had about you help teachers teach math, but you also have to help teachers understand math, right? So there's how to teach math, and there's actually math itself and the mathematical concepts. The better teachers become with understanding that content, the stronger command they have over the mathematical concepts, the better they'll be able to deliver instruction, particularly for those high achieving GT students. So one of the things we're talking about right now in partnership with the Office of Professional Growth and Development here in Arundel County is how do we enter into maybe a partnership with a university or some other entity that can come in and actually do that work alongside with us to really build our teachers' fluency around the mathematical concepts themselves, right? Because to your point, there's content and then there's pedagogy. So you have to teach teachers how to teach math, but you have to teach teachers math. And I think in doing that work as we go into next year, if we can set up a partnership, then I think you'll see that number go up because they'll have the pedagogy, which is there, those effective teaching practices that are laid out in the Reveal program. But the confidence will come from, I really have a strong command over this content as well. So that's probably our biggest opportunity there. We're also going to focus moving into next year as it relates to this work and our work with the science of reading, just helping our teachers understand cognitive processing and the developmental stages of our students, particularly in elementary school, because the elementary brain looks very different at 5 years old than it does at 9 years old. And that has an impact on how you provide instruction. Again, helping with confidence. So understand brain processes, understand pedagogy, and understand the content. And we think we'll have a very confident teaching force if we take that approach to it.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I do think mean, we've discussed the developmental issues with iReady, for example, as you certainly get into middle school and so forth. It does seem to me I'm pleased to see the way the structure was laid out, that there's certainly some, that there's an aspect of this curriculum that is very focused on sort of situating around where the child is and the learning coming from that, right? The launch, so to speak, that sets up engagement and curiosity. But we are still, Dr. Bedell sometimes talks about the problem of being in a 19th century system. We're still in this very outcomes-based structure, right? Which can sort of bump up against the developmental part of it. And so I'm very happy to hear what you're talking about, because I sometimes think, as a non-expert in this, that maybe our biggest Achilles heel with math is developmental in some ways. And so it will be interesting to see, or rather that our structures aren't necessarily based on the development of the child. And so it'll be interesting to see if that promotes some of the growth that we'd like to see. So I'll be very curious to see more on that, and I'm glad to hear all of that is happening. So thank you for the presentation, much appreciated.
So I also would like to thank you for the presentation. I will tell you that as a teacher, I always wanted my students to be risk takers, because when it came to my classroom as a language teacher, I can tell you that those students who were the greatest risk takers were also the most successful students. And so I think that's an extremely, if I had my wish, all of my students would have been great risk takers. I tried to get them to do that. So in preparation for this evening, I did a little checking. I'm not going to say my sources are the greatest in the world, but there's some food for thought here. I did see some pros and some cons. And so I've heard a lot tonight about some of the pros, such as engaging in interactive learning, alignment with the Common Core standards, high quality teaching materials, opportunities, of course, for inquiry-based learning, resources for differentiating learning, and others. However, I did see the cons. And it is not my intent to focus on the cons, the negative. It is my intent to at least put it out there and hear what you might have to say. I will tell you that I've really enjoyed your presentation, because, in fact, it's kind of debunked some of what I think the cons might be. So I'm just going to put this out there, and whatever your response might be. Technological dependence. I don't know if you want to respond, or if you want me to give you all, but so one of the concerns is that this does create, there's a heavy reliance on technology that could be a significant challenge.
So there's not a total reliance on technology. Technology is there as a tool. So everything that's in Reveal is digitized and can be used through the digital apparatus, which does make things more efficient, particularly when you're using the exit and it actually grades the tickets for you and tells you what student should be an extension versus reinforcement. But I say all that said, everything that we have in the digital apparatus is also paper and pencil. And so as you go through the sequence of a lesson, typically the launch, you'll see a lot more whiteboards, you'll see a lot more hands-on. Typically, as they get into the Explore, which is more the modeling portion or the activity-based that students are doing together, that's typically more pen and paper, more of like your manipulatives, that sort of thing. The one area you will see more of the digital product, particularly the upper grades, will be typically when they're doing the assessment, right, which is the exit ticket. And that just helps because it scores it immediately for the teacher and tells the students what activity they should go to for differentiation. But it's a mixed bag. I think at the K through 2 levels, what I've seen, and this is just anecdotal at best from the probably 25 or 30 elementary schools I've been to look at Reveal, would be that it's a lot more paper pencil K through 2. 3 through 5, obviously students are a little more familiar with the technological applications and they're able to navigate that a little better. So you'll see a bit more. But like I said, I would say 2/3 of the lesson, most likely, most cases I've seen are typically more hands-on paper and pencil. And so not having access to a Chromebook does not inhibit. Teachers could pick up and teach a full Reveal lesson, the full scope and sequence from the launch to differentiation and not touch a piece of technology, right?
Okay, thank you. Another con is, and I'm not going to do all of these, but another con is the cultural mismatch issues. That there's a concern that Reveal Math may not fully align with the cultural context of all students.
Yeah. What is there a specific cultural context or?
It says that the mismatch can affect the relevance and relatability of the material, potentially hindering the learning process for some students.
Yeah, I think Ms. Alvarone talked about kind of the characters, the windows and mirrors. I do know embedded in the effective teaching practices throughout the lessons, there's tools and differentiation activities for students who are multi-language or are ESOL students. That's actually built into the program. So it'll tell you for your ESOL students, use this language or use this key vocabulary. So it definitely differentiation provides supports for our multi-language learners. You'll see a diversity in terms of the range of students or characters that are in the program. Also within the program, teachers have a choice when they get to what's called the explore portion of the lesson, where they can do more of an inquiry-based activity where it's more students can go kind of explore and inquire, less guided. But teachers also have the flexibility to say, okay, I have students that need a little bit more guided instruction, guided modeling. So there's that choice too in terms of the students who are a little bit more self-directed versus the students who need more of, I think, more of the, quintessential modeling that we all remember, the I do, we do, you do. So it's kind of speaking to all those different, I don't know if Ms. Batten or Ms. Alvarone have something else to offer on that.
Well, I think you've done a good job. As I said, some of a good bit of your presentation has kind of debunked some of these things for me anyway. So there are a few others. One is a con, supposedly a steep learning curve for educators. And is that something that we've experienced with our teachers and staff?
So I would attribute that to two things. One, becoming familiar with the material itself and the progressions of the instruction that's provided for those particular skills. So it's very laid out, and it does require teachers to invest in time for planning for themselves. But it also goes back to Dr. Duarte's comment about supporting our teachers in their own mathematical understanding and the professional development that we will be providing as in the future years.
Okay, there are a few others. One, con was insufficient teacher support, but I think you've kind of shown us with the data that that's been debunked. So we talked about flexibility. That is another supposedly a con. I mean, as a teacher, I always felt that I needed the flexibility. I'm going to take the curriculum and I'm going to adapt it to my students. So I need that flexibility to do that. And from what you've talked about, our teachers clearly have that flexibility. And I think this might have been mentioned earlier, a limited accessibility for special needs students. Is that an issue? It may not be fully accessible, and I guess maybe that they're saying that because of the technology that some may not have. So
That may be specific to a certain disability, but we put it through a clear technology vetting process so that it does pass all those checks and milestones for our students who have those accessibility issues. So I probably would need a little bit more information about that to take a deeper dive.
okay, there was one other thing that did kind of strike me, and then and that is the roles of the individuals involved. I read that in the educational ecosystem of Reveal Math, both teachers and parents hold pivotal roles in enhancing the mathematical journey of students from K to 5. Well, and there was a focus on the parental role. Well, isn't that kind of part and parcel of whether it's Reveal Math or teaching French or Spanish? Everyone has their roles, and they have to play those roles. So I'm going to go around. I do see lights, so I'm going to recognize anyone that puts their light on for any follow-up questions. Ms. Shahan.
Yeah, I have to say I was a little confused by one of the cons you were mentioning that I think you said was debunked about the cultural responsiveness with regard to this curriculum, because all around me I see diversity, and that's what we want to see. We're serving a diverse school system, and where before you might not see any representation, you might not see yourself at all in the curriculum. I think with this, it looks like you do, and that's a good thing. That's a happy thing. So this is one of the, I don't have an elementary school kid anymore. She's happily in middle school, but this would be something that I think would really excite her, not just the diversity in terms of background, but girls and boys and non-binary students, from a variety of different, representing a variety of different STEM careers, which is what we want to hold up as a wonderful and worthy path for folks to go down, should they choose to travel down it, in a variety of ways, not just college. So, so yeah, I wanted to make those comments because.
Thank you, Ms. Shahan. Dr. Tobin.
Yeah, thank you. Just another note about the parental engagement. So the parental events sounded terrific, and it sounded like there was a pretty good response. Can we assume this will continue as a regular thing, not just that Reveal Math is new, but that we obviously want to continue that? Is that the plan, that's part of this?
So thank you for asking. It was a very exciting time during the fall when we were able to, the math team worked really in collaboration with so many different offices to bring these out to the schools as well as virtually. And they have shared a lot of their positive and learned experiences also with our literacy team, as well as we look at rolling out some new literacy materials also, and continue to engage our community in a variety of different ways. Many times we do help prepare our math leaders, both teachers and leaders in the buildings, to really put on something specifically for their school, knowing their community of learners best, but with the support of the math office and Reveal behind them.
Great. I would just encourage, I think it's great. And I think continuing this is a wonderful plan. And while I say that, I want to also take this moment to congratulate you, Dr. Duarte, on the newsletter that you are putting out.
Thank you.
I think that's an excellent addition to the work that we're doing. And again, I would hope that would just be, yet another way to ensure that families see all of the things that are going on. But if your child there's an area where you particularly want to be able to support your child, it seems like that's a good opportunity. So thank you. And when there are events like this, I'm sure, I know for myself, maybe my colleagues, I'd be happy to attend one of them and see what's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Frank?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of follow-up questions after hearing from some of my colleagues. Dr. Tobin mentioned the slide that had 69% of teacher confidence in the ability to teach. And then Mr. Silkworth actually brought up the parental component. So when students bring this home, what is the learning curve for the parents who, don't participate, who are going to be looking at this perhaps for the first time?
Absolutely. So if I can go to the next slide
And to be
again.
clear, I asked because I struggle with my kids' math.
So absolutely, and I'm sure there are many others who feel the same way. And so very intentionally, there are family letters for each unit at each grade level. There are also these math replay videos that you see here, where both students and families can access that math replay video, usually 2 to 3 minutes, to give, again, some reteach. They are for students, but they're really for parents.
Gotcha. Well, that's helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Ms. Ellis?
I just have to chime in on that newsletter. I did send Dr. Bedell just a congratulations on that. It feels like long overdue
Thank
that
you.
we're really sharing the news of our academics with the community, and I think it's great.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more lights, Dr. Bedell, any comments?
No, just I want to thank the team for continuing to work as we make these changes. We're looking forward to seeing what the data will reveal at the end of this school year. We're anticipating, in my opinion, a much stronger year, just given the fact that the conditions were much better when our kids entered into our schools back in August, whether it's transportation, better staffing, and now the launch of a new curriculum. And then we look forward to the launch of our amplified curriculum next year with the Science for Reading, and look forward to being able to give you all an update on how we're progressing. We think all of these things foundationally will align and will set our kids up as we work to lift up not only our special education and how we provide special education services in this district, but gifted and talented education. And we think if we get the foundational aspect of this right, it opens up access to a world of opportunities for children. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. And once again, on behalf of the board, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. We greatly appreciate that. We thank everybody for being with us here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please have a good night.